it gives me great pleasure to introduce Miss Isa Adney, who is here from Florida. She's visiting the area, though, and has graciously granted us the opportunity to have her here on campus, where she's here for a little bit, and she's heading back up to Boston for another presentation this evening. So a little round of applause for her for taking time to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about Isa, and from there I will hand it over and she'll steal the show. So Isa is currently a student life coordinator at Seminole State College and is also a college speaker and author of the book Community College Success: How to Finish with Friends, Scholarships, Internships, and the Career of Your Dreams, all something I'm going to assume you're interested in. Isa began college at Seminole State, where she won the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship, which provided $30,000 per year for her bachelor's degree and $50,000 for her master's degree. After Seminole State, she transferred to Stetson University, where she graduated at the top of her class and served as the commencement speaker. Isa is the first in her family to graduate with a bachelor's degree and will graduate with her master's in education this June. Her blog, communitycollegesuccess.com, I encourage you to check it out, reaches thousands of students and has been featured in publications like the USA Today College and LA Weekly. Isa's book, Community College Success, focuses on giving low-income students who have been historically underrepresented in higher education the tools they need to succeed beyond their wildest dreams. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Isa Adney.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you guys so much for being here. I am so excited to be here. This is a beautiful campus, and it's obvious to me that you guys have amazing staff and amazing students. I'm actually here because of one of your fellow alumni, Chris, who hooked me up with this gig, and he's also a Jack Kent Cooke Scholar that came from BCC, and he's at Brown right now. So that scholarship could happen for one of you as well. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is a little bit of my story, share my college experience, and also share with you the secrets that I learned, the secrets that are in my book about how to take your community college experience, how to take your life and really make it something that you never really thought it could be. And the heart of that secret is other people. And so these pictures that you see up here, these are the people in my life who made where I am today possible. These are the people who absolutely changed the trajectory of where I thought I was going to go. And these are the people who I owe everything to. And yet, when you go to a community college, or really whenever you commute to college and you're not living on campus, it's so easy to just go to class and go home and not interact with people in a way that's deeper. And I think that's one of the big reasons why only 50% of students who are going to college are actually graduating, is I think they're not making those deeper connections and making that community that makes all the difference. And not just in college, but in life. You know, I've talked to a lot of successful people, I interview people on my blog, and I'm always just trying to learn. And the thing that everyone says is community, is networking, is the people in their life who believed that they could do more and who showed them how to get there. And so what I want to give for you today is teach you how to do that for yourself and how to build that community so that you're not one of the 50% who doesn't graduate with the goal that you came here for. But I want you to be one of the students who goes beyond, you know, what you ever thought you could do. So I want you to do something for me real quick before we get started. I want you guys in just a second to stand up, and I want you to hug the two people closest to you, all right? But before you do that, hold on. I want you to rate your energy level right now. Like 1 to 10, think of a number. What is your energy level right now, all right? And I'm not talking about these kind of like awkward hugs, all right? I want you to hug people like you haven't seen them in years. They just came off the airplane and you just are so excited, all right? Ready? Go. I'm watching. Stand up. Very good. There we go. I got a 3 hugger right there. I love it. All right, so rate your energy level right now, all right? Get a number in your head. I want you to raise your hand if your energy level went up at least 1 point after doing that real quick. All right? Most of you. The reason I have you do that is we get energy from other people. We are social beings, all right? And that energy that you get from others, that can catapult you to absolutely amazing things. I mean, what brought me here to Boston was to be on 2 television shows, something I never thought I would be doing in my life. And it was terrifying, but also absolutely amazing once it was over. And as I was doing that, I just kept thinking about all the people in my life who made that possible, because I never would have thought that could have been me. And that could be you. You could be somewhere in your life in just a few years. I'm only 24, that you never thought you could be. And it's that energy that you get from other people. And I want to teach you how to get that and how to make the most of it. And so this is just me graduating from Stetson, and I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for all those people that surrounded me. And I hope you can build that network, and I want to teach you how to do that. But before I do that, I think in college and in life, it's important to first know where you've been, right? Understanding your story, understanding who you are, understanding what opportunities that gives you, and also understanding what barriers that might be placing on your life, because the only way to overcome your barriers is to first understand what they are and how they got there. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my story. This picture, this is my grandpa. His name is Tito Rosado, and that's me, and that's my brother laughing with him. He grew up in Puerto Rico. He didn't really have shoes. He lived in this really, really remote place. His mom died when he was really young of a bee sting because they couldn't get her to a hospital in time. She died on the way. He moved to New York to find a better life for himself. And he heard these factories were hiring people who spoke English, and so he went there. My grandma also moved from Puerto Rico to New York, and that's where they met, and that's where they worked really, really hard as a janitor and a maid for their entire lives. And to me, my grandpa was the richest person in the world, because he would save all his extra change in this little jar, and he would give it to me and my brother when we were that age every time we'd go over there. I think there's money somewhere being rustled around in that picture. And you know, that's all I knew. He was just this great grandpa who had tons of change and who always was making us laugh. You know, when you live your life, it's just your life. You don't really think about it beyond that. You don't think about your parents or your grandparents as people with stories that affect your story. But he died just this past year. And it was my first experience with someone dying close to me. And, you know people die, but that first one, it's kind of that deeper reality that these people aren't around forever. They're not going to be around forever. And then you start to think about how they impacted your life. And I started to realize that being a minority and being the first in my family to go to college presented some boundaries. And it started to teach me that while we live in a great country where we have a lot of opportunities to make something of ourselves, where you come from does play a part in that. You can overcome it, but you have to know that it's there. And I didn't really understand it until very recently. So when I was growing up, I was just living this kind of lower middle class life. I went to a high school where only 25% of the students who graduated went to college. But again, didn't really know that. My family lived, pretty lower middle class life. My mom didn't work. My dad worked as a case manager at a job that he hated, that he still works and he still hates. But he always told me to find something that I loved because he didn't want that for me. But he did it because one of his goals was having a family, and that's what he did it for. But when I was in high school, my younger brother, Tito, who's in that picture right there, he came home one day when he was in 7th grade, like screaming of a stomach ache, like screaming. And he wasn't like that kind of kid. And so my mom took him to the hospital, and they said, oh, it's just food poisoning. You can send him home. He'll be fine in the morning. And he woke up the next morning completely paralyzed from the waist down of a bacteria that had gotten in his stomach and migrated to his spine called transverse myelitis. And he was hospitalized for a very long time in wheelchair and all of that. And that was really hard financially on my parents. We didn't have money, and they're still in incredible financial debt, medical bills that they'll probably die with. But a few months after that, while Tito had, I think, just gotten out of the hospital, my other brother, Robbie, who's on the other side of me, the younger one, when he was 4, he woke up in my parents' bed shaking and foaming at the mouth. And they didn't know what was wrong. And my mom left in an ambulance, and my dad came and woke me and my brother up at 4 in the morning and just said, guys, Mom just left with Robbie in an ambulance. He was shaking and foaming at the mouth. And my dad just stopped talking, and he kind of stepped back in the hallway that connected our rooms, and he just looked up and he said, I don't know how much more of this I can take. And my dad, I hadn't seen him really break yet at that point. He was kind of the strong one. And I'll never forget that moment in the hallway. I'm lucky and happy to report that, you can see both my brothers there are happy and healthy. The other one's standing. He's a manager of a skateboard shop, skateboards, and they're doing great. But the reason I tell that story is it was a huge financial burden on my family, and it played a huge role in my decisions to go to college. When I first was a junior and getting ready to look at college, my parents said, you can go wherever you want to go. Because for 2 reasons. For one, they didn't go to college, so they didn't understand anything about the college culture. And number 2, they were in such debt already for so many horrid, tragic things that I think they just figured, hey, what's some more for something that's at least good? We're already going to die with all this debt. So being kind of young and naive, I thought, okay, great. So I looked at these big universities a little bit, and they terrified me, to be honest. I didn't know anything about college. I just felt really alone trying to figure this out. But I had some friends who were going to this small private school on the beach, and I was from Florida. I love the beach, and so I thought, wow, this is beautiful. I know people here. It's small. I felt safe, so I was going to go there. So I, did all the whole process, was so excited, 3 weeks, getting ready to move and have this amazing experience, and I get a letter in the mail. And I sit down at this white kitchen table where my parents often paid the bills, and I open this envelope, and it's my freshman schedule, looking at all the classes I'm going to take. I'm so excited. Next page is the orientation, this crazy 2-day experience where I was going to meet all my new friends that I'd have for life, and it just looked amazing. And then I got to the 3rd page, and the 3rd page was the bill for that first year. And I'll never forget the number. And I remember thinking of my dad in the hallway saying, I can't take this anymore. And I thought, am I really willing to put my family in $100,000 of debt for my education? And I knew the answer before I asked the question. No, I couldn't do it. And so 3 weeks before I was supposed to move, I told them I wasn't going, and I drove over to the local community college. And I filled out my little 2-page paper application, handed it in, and then went into the advising office and sat and waited for 2 hours to see an advisor. And I remember sitting in that room and looking around at everyone of all ages and just all different kinds of people sitting in this room. And I just remember not feeling any hope. I remember not seeing any hope in anyone's eyes, and I remember feeling lower than I'd ever felt before. And I didn't regret my decision. I just didn't know where I was going to go from there. And I felt so incredibly alone. A lot changed after that. And I'm going to talk about that as we go through the rest of this story. But I want you to now think about you. And I want you to think about your story. How did you get here? What is your family like? And how did that influence what you think you're capable of? And what you plan on doing with your life? Because it's important to make those connections when you're here. And it's also important to know why you're here. Why are you at BCC? What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? Because just figuring that, oh, this is the next step, or yeah, get a degree probably will be good, it isn't enough. Because as you probably already know, this is hard. This is hard work. College is hard work. Managing it with probably all the other things that you have going on is hard work. And I admire those of you who are here, and you're still here, and you're doing it. But things do get hard, and you have to have that bigger reason of why you're here. And so I want you to take just a few minutes real quick and turn to the person closest to you. If there's, odd number, group of 3 is fine. And I want you guys to just take a minute each real quick and tell each other, one point of your history that you feel really defines you, or you feel really impacts you, and then why you're here. And not your major, but kind of why you're here. What do you want to accomplish? All right, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to do that. So take about a minute and a half each to talk to each other real quick. The reason I have you guys do that is I want you to get used to owning your story and talking about why. And you may not, be able to figure it all out now, and you may still have no idea why you're here, and that's okay. That's totally okay. But what I want you to do after today, now that you know, is to do everything you can to figure out why. Because in the end, this is your life. Right? Your college degree isn't just about, the economy or about, getting a job. It's your life. And you have more control over it than you realize. But if you don't take that control, it will feel always like life is happening to you and like you can't do anything about it. And I promise you that's not a place you want to be, because the majority of people are like that. The majority of people are really miserable in their day-to-day lives, in the 40 hours a week that they spend. A lot of people feel like they can't get out of their situations. And a lot of people wish that they knew that earlier in life, because they could have done something about it. My dad told me, I sat down with him for lunch a few days ago, and he sat down next to me at this Italian restaurant looking across, and he had just finished reading my book, because I had just sent him a copy of the week before. And he looked me in the eyes, and he said to me, I read this book, and I really thought if I had read this when I was in community college, it would have made such a difference in my life. And I wouldn't be where I am. And, my dad's happy, obviously, with his family, and we have a really great family, but that really struck me. I almost started crying right there in that Italian restaurant. And so I think of him when I tell you that, because I hope for you guys that you're able to enjoy your college experience and that you're able to find a job where you can really contribute your best talents to the world. Because not only do we need you, but you'll find life is a lot more exciting. And I would think and hope that most of you would, want that kind of life, because I think that's where great leadership happens. That's where most amazing things in our world happen. They come from people who are excited about living and excited about what they have to bring to the world. So I hope you figure that out. Make it a goal to figure out your why. There's a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and he says that your why power is more important than anything else. You don't have to know how to get there. You don't have to know any of the details. You just got to know why. Because if you don't know why, it's almost guaranteed that you're not going to get where you want to go, because things get hard, and it's the why power that pushes us through to get us where you want to go. So the next section in talking about building your community to succeed in wherever you want to go in life, once you figure out what that is your peers, the people around you. And in high school, people always say, oh, your peers, they influence you, and, watch out for bad influences. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, you hear that all the time, and just whatever, I can handle myself. But the more and more I research, and I'm a huge reader, the more and more I'm reading that it's scientifically proven that the people who surround us have a huge impact on our life. They have a huge impact on what we eat, on how we think, and on where we set our bar and where we think we are going to go. And so it's really important to surround yourself with people who are motivating you, people who want to go somewhere with their lives, people who are excited and who are positive, and to have the courage to step away from people who maybe aren't there, because they will drag you down a lot faster than you will bring them up. And so I want to continue my story by telling you the friends who made a difference in my life. When I was in a community college class, one day after class, I had a student come up to me, and she invited me to a Phi Theta Kappa meeting. To your honor society, I saw a sign, you guys have a chapter here. And, I had a second, right? I had a second to make a decision. Am I going to go, or am I going to say, no, I'm just going to go to my car and go home? And she was so friendly and so enthusiastic that I just thought, heck, why not? I don't have class after this. Let me just go see what this is all about. And so I went to this Phi Theta Kappa meeting, and everyone was just so friendly and so welcoming. And they asked me the first meeting to be an officer. And I was like, I don't even know what this club is about. I've never really led anything before. I don't know if I can do this. But it was small at the time. They were just trying to get it started. They were just trying to probably get anybody in. And I just said, well, okay, what have I got to lose? And so I became an officer in this club. And a few meetings in, we had this guest speaker. Her name was Lolita, and she had won the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship the year before. And so she talked about this scholarship, and when I heard $30,000 a year for your bachelor's and $50,000 for your master's, I thought, whatever I have to do, I'm going to apply to this. I have to. That money would change everything. And so I took advantage of that opportunity, and what I did is I talked to Lolita after the meeting, and I said, hey, I really loved your speech. I really want to apply for the scholarship. Do you have any advice for me? And that question is really important, and you'll see that trend a lot, asking people for advice if you get nothing else out of this. Never be afraid to ask people for advice, and you'd be surprised at how many will be happy to give it to you. So Lolita told me all about the scholarship, and I applied. And, I didn't think I got it. I mean, it took forever. So I went along, participating in Phi Theta Kappa. I actually became president of it through the encouragement of my friends. I never would have really done that on my own. But it's really powerful when you have people around you who believe in you, people around you who are excited, and they motivate you. And, in my book, I got information and quotes from so many other students who have won the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship, who have won tons of other scholarships, and they had the most to say about their friends. They had the most to say about it was the great people in their life who allowed them to win all that money and to be so successful. And that was definitely true for me. And the moment that it really hit how great they were in my life was when I won the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship. It was a graduate luncheon. I mean, we're talking April, so I thought I didn't win it at this time. And we're at the small graduate luncheon, and the president is speaking, and she's just finishing up her remarks, and she's like literally stepping away, and then she goes, oh, by the way, one more thing. We have our second Jack Kent Cooke scholar, Isa Adney. And I got up, and then I fell completely back down on my knees, and I was just weeping is the best way to describe it. And, $30,000 a year to get my bachelor's degree was huge. But I'll never forget thinking that I'd have $50,000 to get a master's degree. And that overwhelmed me with emotion because I didn't realize until that moment that I didn't think I was someone who could get a master's degree. And I had good grades, and I was confident and excited about life, and yet I still didn't think I could do anything. I still didn't put myself in those higher positions because I didn't have anyone around me, who did that. Everyone in my family and extended family are working class folks, and I didn't think I was capable of more. And I didn't know that I didn't think I was capable, but in that moment I realized I did. And so as I was crying, my friends all came around me and picked me up, and they were crying too. And that blew my mind because these were people who deserved the money just as much as I did. These are people who needed the money just as much as I did, and yet they were so happy for me that they were crying. And I never had friends like that. And I realized that I wouldn't have had that scholarship if it weren't for them. And so who you are around can literally change your life. And there is really no greater feeling in the world. They offer such incredible support and can be amazing influences if you surround yourself with the right people. So just kind of a quick action check in terms of takeaways, what to do. Make sure you join a club. If you're not in a club right now or doing some extracurricular thing, do it. Just trust me, visit a few, find the one that you connect with, find the one that you click with, and then be a leader. Those leadership positions are not that hard to get. They're not that hard to do because you have people with you. And those leadership positions are what win scholarships. The stuff I'm telling you will pay you money. I mean, with the scholarships that I got paid to go to college. And I mean, literally like extra checks, $5,000 a semester that I'm still getting now because I'm in my last semester of my master's degree. And that can happen to you guys. It can. And being a leader is really key in that. The also great thing about being a leader is you often get a lot of opportunities that people don't always know about or people don't always get. One of the big things for me was when I was president of Phi Theta Kappa, I got to go to the national convention for free. It was in Nashville, Florida. It was in Nashville, Tennessee. I lived in Florida. And I had actually never been on an airplane before. To me, airplanes were for rich people. We didn't go on airplanes ever. And so I'll never forget flying that first time and like being up in the air and being so amazed and really feeling like, wow, like I can go places. And that may seem like silly to someone who's used to being on airplanes, but for me that was really big. And travel can be really big if you've never done it before, because it opens your mind and it makes you feel like you really can do anything. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity, that free opportunity, if it weren't for being a leader in a club. So you'd be surprised. And it also develops your leadership skills, and it's incredible to work in a team and see what happens when people rely on you. It will feel good. People who are leaders in clubs, talk to any of them, they love getting up in the morning. They love coming to class and going to college because they're there for more. You know, they have that purpose and they're doing something and they're contributing. And while it's hard to make that first step because it seems like extra work and extra time, once you do it, you'll find that it's one of the most rewarding things that you can do while you're here. And then the last one is not actually about your health, though. You know, you can take it how you want. It's actually about this whole idea of drive-through education. You know, cut out that habit of just going to class and going home. You know, go inside and really, really dig deep into this experience. There are so many incredible opportunities here, and they're yours for the taking. And the students who are willing to step up and say, I want this, and I want to be successful, and I want to make money while I'm in college, and I want to get scholarships, and I want to do what I really want to do with my life. I don't want to be trapped in because I didn't really make the effort. Then that's what it takes. So I really encourage you to think about that. It's not easy, but there are people who will help you if you just ask. And the next group of people that will help you, that really helped me, were professors. One of the first big things that happened to me when I was in my first Western Civ class, I had this professor who was terrifying. He was everything that I like stereotype professors to be. He was kind of mean, and he would just call on you instantly and ask you a really hard question and literally just be like, oh, you know, look at you like you were an idiot if you didn't know the answer. And so he was really scary. He was very smart, and, you know, I was learning a lot from him. He was really, really blunt, and you know, I was getting engaged in this culture and getting acclimated. So about a week or two, you know, we get back our first pop essays because he loved those surprise essays. And you know, that first test you get back in any class, it's kind of like, okay, here's where I stand. Here's what this professor's like. Here's how they grade. Here's, you know, how I'm going to figure out where I stand. And this is my first test that I get back at college in any class. And so I get this back, I get this essay, and all it says on it is "see me." I thought, awesome, great. I am not apparently cut out for college like I thought I was. So as soon as class is over, I race to his office because I did not want to have to walk with him to the office. So I'm waiting in there, and he comes in, and he sits down, and he like leans back in his chair and just like crosses his arms and looks at me. I'm like scareder than I've ever been in my life. And he just looks at me in the eye and says, "You should be in our honors program." Whew, first of all, I was so relieved. And then I was like, well, I didn't know we had an honors program. And he proceeded to tell me that our college had an honors program and that community college could be a great launching point for anywhere I wanted to go in my life. In fact, I'll never forget one of the first colleges he said was one in Boston. He was like, this is a great school. You know, you could go here. You could, after that, you could go to Harvard. You know, you can do anything you want to do. And college is community college is a great place to start. And then he walked me to the honors director's office, and they set me up into this program. And I'll never forget that because it was the first time in my life that someone sat me down, looked me in the eye, and told me that you can do more. And I see something in you, and I believe in you, and I think you could go places. And that is one of the most powerful forces we have in the world. I think most people who are struggling, who have a hard time, even people who maybe didn't have the best GPA in high school, I don't think it's because those people aren't smart. I think it's because a lot of people don't have that in their lives. I don't think enough people have people who are looking them in the eye and telling them what they see in them and telling them what they can do with their lives. And I am so thankful for that because I don't know where I'd be. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I had really supportive parents. I work at a college, and I meet so many students who don't have parents or who have parents who don't care, or parents who actually bring them down, and it like nothing breaks my heart more because it kills me, because I think we lose out on so many great people and so many great talents and so many great things that could be created in our world because so many people just don't believe in themselves and haven't had someone to do that for them. And professors can be a great source. Now, obviously, I was lucky enough to have one who sought me out, and he worked with a lot of students in that way. It wasn't just, oh, I was some amazing genius that he found. No, he cared, and he looked for anyone who was trying and wanted to help them. And as I went through college, I realized I could build these relationships myself. And so I did that once I transferred to Stetson University. I built a relationship with my advisor, and I would sit down with her and I would ask her advice. And most professors, even if they seem intense and scary up front, they're there because they like students. They could do other jobs. They're here because they do care about you and they want you to succeed. And most of them will bend over backwards to help you if you just ask. And obviously, you want to be a good student first, because if you're just asking for advice and you're not really trying in class, you're not really showing up, they're going to think maybe you're trying to suck up or trying to get the easy way out. But if you're sitting in the front of the class and you are trying your hardest, and you go ask them for your advice, or you say, listen, I really struggle in math, and this is really hard. Do you have any advice for how I can really do well in your class, because I want to do well? They will help you academically, which is huge. But also, they know the college, they know the opportunities, and they're the ones who will make your experience incredible, because they know things that you don't know. They knew things I didn't know. Some of these pictures here, one is me eating a beignet in New Orleans because my professor at Stetson nominated me for this program where I got a $2,000 research grant for a research paper that I had to do anyway. And then I got to travel to New Orleans to present that paper. And that was amazing. It was something I never would have done, never would have known about. The other picture is of me in England, which was a dream of mine. I mean, I'd never been on an airplane sophomore year, and yet junior year, I was in another country. And that was through a professor telling me about this field study class and program that the Jack and Cook Scholarship was able to cover. And that was amazing. And then this other picture where I'm super excited on graduation, I was a commencement speaker, and after my speech, they were giving out this other award, this top award that I didn't know anything about, for the top student at the college in that class, in academics and community service and leadership and all that stuff. And I won, and I didn't even know how I won, but I got the certificate, and then I walked out. That's the parking lot right there, and I had opened it up, and it came with a $3,000 check. And I was freaking out, jumping, screaming. I could not believe it. And I didn't even know how I got this at first, and I eventually found out it was that professor, because they took professorial nominations. And not to mention the professors I met in community college and the professors I met at Stetson, they write recommendation letters. You can get a lot of money for college, a lot. And you can get into schools that you may think are out of your reach. And a professor recommendation is a huge part of that. And if professors don't really know you, they're just not going to have much to say. They were in my class, they were respectful, they did a good job, they got a B or an A. What are they going to say? But if you build a relationship and they know you, they will want to write essays about how awesome you are. And I'm experiencing that now because I'm a student life coordinator, and so I write a lot of recommendation letters now for the students that I work with. And the ones who are just so engaged, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about them. And I just talk them up as the most amazing person in the whole world. Because the truth is, you stand out when you build these relationships. Not everyone's doing it. 50% are dropping out. And that's a reality, and it's one that I hope changes. But when you do these things, the cool part is you really do stand out, and they're going to really want to help you if they see that you care. And these professors made an absolutely incredible difference on my life, and they can do that for you. So the first thing to do is meet with every professor at least once. That's what office hours are for. Some of them might want you to make an appointment. Check that out and meet once, and meet early. A lot of students don't meet with the professor ever if they can avoid it, or they wait till they are failing and don't know what to do. And that's not the strategy that you want to take. You should make an impression early. In my book, I lay out exactly when to go, what to say, depending on what type of class it is, where your strengths are, and what you want to do. Meet once. Let them know that you want to do well in their class. Ask them for advice. And then notice the ones that you click with, the ones who maybe teach something that really interests you, or would know a little bit more about that a major you're considering, and just ask them advice. They're the ones who can really help you as well with your transfer experience, because that can be really overwhelming. You know, it's like going through it all over again. And as the first person in my family to graduate college, I felt so alone. One of my lit professors actually drove me to Stetson University. Like I followed her, and she got me to sit in on a class. And I mean, that was like 35, 40 minutes away. And she did that for me. And I couldn't believe it. And I don't know if I would have gone to that college or felt like it was accessible without her, because that academic world can feel really confusing, and you can feel really lost. And when you do, you know, kind of shy away from it. You know, I was shying away from great opportunities because I didn't understand them, and I was afraid. And professors will really, really help you get there, because they really understand that world, because they're in it every day, and they'll love to help you. Next thing is sit in the front row. I recently heard that if you did nothing else to change your study habits, but you sat in the front row, your grades would go up because you're more engaged. It's a lot harder to text when you're right there. It's a lot harder to be distracted because the professor's right there, and it's a different experience. I mean, think about when you go to a concert or you go to an event. The energy and the excitement is so much better at the front row. And you may not want to see your professor as much as you want to see your favorite musician, but you should, because sitting in that front row can have a much bigger impact on your life. So I highly encourage you to do that. And then the last one, like I said earlier, ask for advice. Everyone that you meet, every professor, anyone who you admire, just ask them. You'll be amazed at what you learn. And then the last one is professionals. And this is something I didn't figure out until I graduated and wished I had known in college. Because there's a lot of postgrads right now, a lot of people who graduate college, and they're still living at home. They're working fast food. They're working, waitressing. They are struggling, trying to figure out what's going on and what was this degree for again, because I can't find a job. And that happened to me too. Despite all my awards, all GPA, you think, okay, you do really well in college, everyone's just going to be like dying to hire you. And I learned that can be true if you're at, these really, Ivy League, prestigious universities. There's some really big companies that recruit. But for the most part, it's really, really hard. And I struggled a lot when I actually graduated. I didn't really know where I fit in. I chose a major that I loved, which was communications. I loved every minute of it, and I highly recommend, sidebar, find a major whose classes you love, because that's where you'll do really well. If I had chosen engineering or physics, or something that I know I'm not good at, I would not have done very well. So anyway, I had this major, and I loved it, but I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I had known when I was in community college that I really loved it, and that I wanted to be a part of it in some way, but I still didn't know how that actually worked. I still didn't really understand careers. And so as I, began searching, I started reading books, and I started, asking people around me, like, what do I do? And a lot of people had said, oh, public relations. You'd probably be great at public relations. And I thought, okay, well, public relations, what's that? It's like relating with the public, I guess. I like to do that, so let's try it. And so what I did is I started by doing these informational interviews with this mentorship program actually at my community college. I went back to them because they had a great career center, and I started doing this thing called an informational interview, where you sit down with someone who has a job that you're interested in, or at least you think you're interested in, and you ask them about their job. What do you do? What do you like about it? What do you hate about it? What advice do you have for me? Where would I start if I wanted to eventually do what you do? And this took me on the most incredible adventure. I got to meet with so many amazing people and figure out what I didn't want to do. And then eventually it led me to what I did want to do and led me to everything that's happening right now. So when I met with this guy in public relations, I realized very quickly, you'll feel it. When you ask someone what they love about their job and what they don't like about their job and what the day-to-day is like, you'll kind of feel it. You'll either be like, oh my gosh, that sounds so boring, or I'm not good at that, or no, I don't want to do that. Or you'll feel like this energy and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like jobs like that exist? Oh, I really want to do that. And so what happens in this process is you're learning about what jobs actually are like, and then you're building contacts with people who will also bend over backwards to get you internships and to get you jobs. And like I mentioned, this is something I wished I had done in college. So in my job now, I'm I tell all my students about this. They're my little proteges because they're with me all the time. And I'm seeing incredible results because they're doing these information interviews now. One wants to be an event planner. So I encouraged her and helped her reach out to people at Disney. And she got to see a Cinderella proposal. She got to work an after-hours event at Animal Kingdom. And now she's got an internship lined up at this huge event planning company in New York. And this is a big deal. These are people who she still has never been outside of where she lives, and now she's got all this planned from doing these little steps, just meeting with people and asking them for their advice. And another one has an internship this summer with a congressman. And I am just blown away. And it's nothing I've done. It's just students who said, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. And they're seeing incredible results. And the biggest difference, more than the internships that they're getting and more than the exposure, they're getting excited. Like I can think of these students when I first met them, and now I see this light in their eyes, and there's nothing I love more when they come in my office and tell me, oh my gosh, Isa, guess who I just talked to, or guess what just happened because of this person I met. And they're excited to be here, and they're excited to live their life, and they're excited about where their lives are going. And that's an energy that I love to see, and an energy that I would hope that all of you could have. And so I encourage you to start that process now because it's life-changing. And it's something I still do now. So the job I ended up getting at the college was because I did an informational interview with someone at the college. And they said, hey, we have this job opening. And then I got this job that I've absolutely loved. But what's cool about this process is it's not something that you just do in college. It's something that can work for you for the rest of your life. Because everyone I talk to has mentors. Everyone who has tons of money or who's doing really great things with their life, they have mentors. They can name you people who have helped them get where they are and people who they're still talking to and still asking advice from. Because that's the best way to learn. And so how that helped me, and the reason I have my book up here, is because last year is when I decided I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write this book. And it was because I had been in this job at the community college, and I had my own experience, and I was seeing my own experience in these students. And I was seeing the ones who were dropping out, and I was seeing the ones whose lives were just literally changing before me. And it all sort of came together one day walking down the hall, and I realized the answer is people. Like the ones who are doing well, they have people in their lives. And, a lot of us who are at community college, we were the first in our family to graduate college, or, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So it was the ones who were really stepping outside their comfort zone and really, really engaging with other people. And so I decided to write a book. I had no idea how to write a book. I had no idea how to get from an idea to like this hard copy book that I could hold in my hands that would be on Amazon.com and bookstores. No idea. So the first thing I did, which is something I do in everything in my life, is I went to the library and I got books. Use your Kindle, use your audiobooks, whatever it is. Books are a huge, huge part of this. And I read all these books about how to publish your nonfiction book. And so I got all that and I said, okay, that's great. Started writing this proposal. You write a proposal first, not the book. But then what I wanted to do, because this is just who I am and it was what had already changed my life so much, is I wanted to talk to someone who was an author. And I wanted to talk to someone who I admired. And so all I did was go on Amazon.com and I typed in college success book. And I organized it so that the best-selling one was on top. And the best-selling college success book at the time was How to Win at College by Cal Newport. Highly recommend it. And so I looked at this book, and Cal wrote the book just a few years out of college. So that already was inspiring. I thought, okay, the best-selling book was written by someone young. Okay, that's good. I feel like I could do this. And so I found his email address. We live in the most amazing time where you can connect with almost anyone through email and through Twitter and through Facebook and through LinkedIn. And that's huge. And I hope you use that to your benefit. And so I just emailed him and said, here's what I'm trying to do, really genuine. I have no idea what I'm doing. Could you offer me any advice? And now Cal, if you read his blog, it's called Study Hacks, and about me, he is a self-proclaimed super introvert, antisocial, doesn't have Facebook. He's not a people person. He's incredibly smart. I love his book. He's not a people person. But even someone who is not a people person, who doesn't like engaging with people, he emailed me back. And he gave me all this advice. He told me about an article he had written a while ago about getting a literary agent. He literally said, don't shoot yourself in the foot without getting a literary agent. And that was something none of the books I read, for whatever reason, had told me about. And so that changed everything. That led me to making this book a reality, actually getting a publisher. And then I used that same technique of reaching out to people who I admired and asking advice to get endorsements for my book. I looked at my bookshelf and some of my favorite authors, looked at the New York Times bestselling list, thought about people whose books I'd read and people I liked. And I found their email addresses. Sometimes I just emailed like whatever email was on their website, like could have been publicists, whatever. And I just gave my honest request. I started off by telling them what I admire about them. You know, every email has to be individualized. And then I just tell them, you know, really honestly what I don't know and what I'm trying to do. And then I ask them if they'd be willing to give their advice, or in this case, write an endorsement. And if you check out my book, like, I can't believe the people who got back to me. Some of my favorites are Brian Tracy, who's an incredibly well-known career author, New York Times bestseller. Dan Pink, who wrote this amazing book about motivation that's been in the New York Times bestselling list for a long time. And then Wes Moore, who, oh my gosh, is one of my favorite books of all time, called The Other Wes Moore. I'm just going to put that out there. And he's also a host of a show, Beyond Belief, and on the OWN network. And he's an absolutely inspiring person. And he also endorsed my book, along with a ton of other people that I couldn't believe. And I had authors emailing me, asking me, hey, how'd you get all these endorsements? And I was like, I just asked. I didn't know it would work. I didn't know if it would work. Honestly, I thought maybe I'd have 2. Cal Newport's endorsement actually ended up on the front cover, which was so cool to me. So this idea of reaching out to people and asking for advice will help you in anything you want to do. Especially when you seek out people who you think are interesting or you want to learn from. If you take their advice, if you listen to it and take it, you can get where they are, and if not farther. And it just is as simple as asking, because so many people are willing to give it. And that's what I learned, is people love to give their advice. I mean, think about if someone asked you right now, hey, you know, I see you're at BCC and you seem to be doing really well, and I'm really scared. Can you know, what's your advice? That feels really good, right? Because someone sees you and they think you're interesting and they actually care what you have to say. So when you ask people for advice, you're not burdening them. You're making them feel really, really good. And that's what I think motivates us to, you know, motivates people to bend over backwards to help you, because that feels great. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world to give people advice. And so you give that to other people when you do it. And there's no other time, I think, in your life where so many people are here to help you. You know, when you're in college, people's jobs are to make sure you're successful. And in the professional world, you know, obviously I'm doing it now. There's still a lot of ways to build that network and ask for advice, but you know, it's more of a competitive world. In college, there's so many more people who like literally care about you succeeding. And I felt that when I was a student, and now I really know that now that I'm a staff member at a college. Like, your heart like burns for these people, and you just like kind of love them, and you really want to see them move forward, because it's just a joy to watch. And so I hope that you guys are able to take advantage of those people, because they really do care about you more than you realize. So the things to do in terms of starting this journey of getting professional mentors in your life. Go to the Career Center. It's one of the most, I think, underutilized resources, because it's typically not mandatory to go ever. But ours was really, really impactful for me. A lot of career centers have personality tests and like career tests. And those can be really helpful if you really aren't sure what you want to do. You know, they're not prescriptive. It's not like whatever comes up, that's what you have to do. Or if what you want to do isn't on there, you can't do it. Definitely not. But it's a great starting point to start to think about, who am I, right? And what am I really good at? Because the best way to choose a major and the best way to find success is to match what you're really, really naturally good at. You know, the things that people compliment you on, the classes that you really just kind of naturally excel at, and then match that with what you're interested in, what excites you. And the Career Center can be a great place to start. And then find a professional mentor. Just start right now after today. Think about one person who you can reach out to. And a great place to start is a college. I mean, colleges have so many different types of people working. There's finance, there's business, there's IT, there's obviously student affairs. There are so many people right here that would love if a student came up to them and said, hey, you know, I kind of like what you do. Could you, tell me more about what you do every day? And could I ask for your advice? And you'll be amazed at where that will take you. So just think about one right now. Think about finding one. And then again, it's up here again, asking for advice. If you just start every day saying, I'm going to ask at least one person for advice about what I'm doing right now, you will see your life just radically transform. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not someone who likes to exaggerate or say something just for impact or, those kind of motivational, things about just believe in yourself, anything's possible. I would never say something to you that I didn't believe wholeheartedly was true and that I hadn't seen, not just in my life, but in the lives of others. If you do this stuff, not because I did it or because I made it up, but because it's just how the world works, if you do this stuff, it will change your life. If you had talked to me when I was crying on the floor of that community college about 5 or 6 years ago now and told me that I'd be here, that I'd be in Boston, that I'd be speaking to students, that I would have been on television shows the day before, I would have laughed. I'd be like, that sounds like somebody else. That sounds like something other people do. Not me. But it was the people in my life who challenged me and who believed in me. And I'm so thankful for them. And you can have those people in your life too. And all you have to do is ask. The end goal is graduation, right? And a lot of people aren't making it there. And I think it's because a lot of people are trying to do it alone. And a lot of people feel really alone. I mean, suicide rates among college students are just horrific. And I think it's this intense loneliness that we don't talk about. It's not cool to talk about how lonely you are, when we're in this super hyper-connected world where we have all our friends that, right here on our phone or in our Facebook, and I think all that's great. But I think people are still really lonely because there is something a lot more energetic that you get when you hug someone versus when you are just texting them or just on their Facebook. And I think both are great, but I think we still need both. And I think to graduate college, especially, to do any big thing in our life, especially if there's barriers, especially if, life maybe isn't offering you these opportunities as easily as maybe it is to other people, we need each other. And I hope that, you're all walking down with that cap and gown not too long from now. And the way to ensure that you do that is to get other people in your life. So I want you to think about who are those people going to be that surround you, and I want you to make the effort to find them and make the effort and realize that this is your life, this is your education, and you have more power over that than you realize. And let me be the first to tell you that you have more talent than you realize, that you are more intelligent than you realize, and that you know about problems in the world that no one else knows about. You're the only one who's lived your life. You're the only one who understands certain things. And you're the only one who can bring certain solutions and certain contributions that we need in this world. And community college is an incredible place to start. Community college, to me, we know there's that stereotype. And as you know, and as I knew as soon as I got there, that it was completely wrong. Community colleges are something, they're part of the American dream. And it's somewhere that I'm really proud to be a part of. And I learned when I was there that community colleges aren't for people who aren't smart. They aren't people who couldn't get in anywhere else. That's so wrong. Community colleges are places where people are there because they want to succeed. They're places for people who are incredibly intelligent, who have been through a lot. They're places for people who know what it means to fight. There are places for people who know what it means to keep going when all they feel like doing is giving up. And I know these are the people who are in this room right now because you wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't that kind of person. You wouldn't be here. And so being in college, being in community college says a lot about who you are. It says a lot of great things about who you are. And I hope that you take that and that you run with it and that you find people who will help you so that you can go as far as you can. And I guarantee you it's farther than you think you can right now. And I can't wait to see what that looks like because I think you guys are absolutely amazing and have so much to offer the world. And we can't afford to lose out on 50% of that. We just can't. I hope you'll keep in touch with me. Facebook is the best way. This is my Facebook group, and then that is my website. I love hearing from you guys. The biggest thing you could ever do for me would be go on Facebook, send me a message, and let me know what you thought about today. I really appreciate putting those on my website. And if you ever want to ask me for advice, I'm here for you. I don't know how much time we have. If we have time for questions, Katie. Sure. Let's see.
I understand you might need to transition to class, so if you need to do so, please feel free to leave. But first, let's give Isa a round of applause.
Thank you.
Audience, and I'm just going to reconnect our New Bedford campus.
Perfect. 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 And for those of you who are interested, I do have some books here for $15. If you want to see me after, I can take cash and credit card. They look like this, and they're also on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com if you want to check that out. All right, does anyone have any questions or even comments about what we just talked about?
I have a comment.
Yes.
The class that came that I was privileged to join here is an astronomy class. And so I wondered, as I read your email inviting us here this morning, how we would connect this with astronomy. And a subtitle to your talk, which was excellent, is Reach for the Stars. And that's what this is all about.
Love it. Reach for the stars. I love that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Is anyone there at New Bedford?
Any questions from
Or any dancing? Any more dancing? I'll take that too. Yes. Right, wonderful. She asked, what about when you're getting to college and you're struggling right away? What helped me was the professor kind of pulling me in class. We didn't have much of an orientation program, and the college I work at now, which is where I went, they're working on that now, and I think a lot more community colleges are seeing how important that is. I mean, I know Katie is working on amazing first-year experience programs here, and I think people are realizing how important those are. I mean, and I think the reason historically we haven't had them is, you know, we don't have the private school budgets. You know, the private school that I was going to go to could put on this amazing 2-day welcome event. You know, we don't always have those resources, and you're trying to get a lot of students in at once, and that's overwhelming. I worked in admissions first, and I know how intense the administrative process can be, but I do think that students need to feel welcome. You know, in my orientation, it wasn't that welcoming. It was kind of here, this is what an AA degree is, here's what you need to take your classes, boom, 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 get into class, you know, and send you on your way. And I understand why that's happening, but I think it's also why we lose a lot of people, because, you know, students should feel welcome, and they should feel like this is something big. Welcome to college. This is still college. It's not this drive-through, all right, you're in classes, that's all you're here to do. And I wish I had had that. It would have got me started earlier. You know, I was only president of Phi Theta Kappa for like the last semester and a half, and I would have loved to be doing that earlier. I would have loved to try out for international office, but I kind of got started in late. And so I think the earlier the intervention, definitely the better, because they're the ones dropping faster. Great question. Anything else? Yes.
We have an ongoing discussion around here among faculty and staff and administration, and that is the importance of advisement. We had a professional day yesterday, and one of the breakout sessions was on advisement, and we find it very difficult, for some reason or other, to move to an advisement program where the advisor and the advisee are linked up very early in the college career of that student. Some of us think it should be right at the beginning and then ongoing, and I wondered what your professional opinion would be.
Having that one advisor at Stetson for the entire 2 years was the most amazing thing. And having the advisors at Seminole State, you know, I saw a different person every time, but I was very proactive. You know, I went to the advising office a lot during my education, because, you know, you have this thing, this educational plan, and, you know, there's a reason it's taking a lot of students 5-6 years to graduate, because they're not meeting with their advisors, and I mean, the college process is really confusing. I mean, it still is, so don't feel bad if it feels confusing at times, but this educational plan is your track, and, you know, every major has different prerequisites. You know, there are students who, if you don't take the right ones in your first 2 years, it's going to be really hard to transfer anywhere you want to go, and those advisors are there to get you through that. And so my opinion is that, I mean, the ideal, yes, is to have one advisor who you know, who you can go to, and that might not always be possible for an institution to create. You know, that's costly and it's really difficult. But, you know, with my book and with everything that, you know, I want to put it on the student so that no matter where you are, no matter what the programs that your college is offering, you can make that great experience for yourself. And so I encourage students to go to the advising office even more than it's required. And when you can, build that relationship with that one advisor. So even if you can't always see them every time, you know, ask them for advice in college success. Email them and say, hey, I took that advice, thank you. That's a great way to build that one-on-one relationship, because I think it is beneficial. But I think regardless of whether it's able to be, you know, in the administrative process or not, students can still get that experience by just taking that initiative and building those relationships, because those people will help you too. And advisors are really important to that part of college for sure. All right, I think I have time for one more, just in case if there's one more. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I'll be here for a few minutes after if you want to come talk to me. Thank you so much.